morning. Again, my name is Gare. I'm one of the pastors around here at Vintage. A great delight to welcome you. Do you have a spare seat? Anyone? We have any spare seats? Raise your hand if you have a spare seat next to you. No. One over here. I think this row may be free down here. If you guys, the whole second row may be free if you want to come. There's one over there. Do grab a seat. Before we dig into God's word together, just a reminder last week of an announcement I gave, which is the start of the year, we looked at our capacity this year and we just felt, wow, we don't want to burn out as a staff, we don't want to do too much, and for lots of reasons, we felt actually focus probably may not be able to happen this year. And then the fires came and it was like, yeah, absolutely. So for lots of reasons, we just felt the Lord confirmed that focus is not for this year. We're going to do it next year. So thank you so much for not coming to Malibu in May, and we'll stay here together. That's our focus retreat. The last 2 weeks have been very disorienting, haven't they, for many people, for all of us, and particularly those affected by the fires. And there's been really two questions that have predominated my conversations with people. The first is, Gare, what is God doing? Where's he leading us? For those families who are affected, they've got some big life decisions. How do I know what God's will is? Do we stay in LA? Do we move? Do we change schools? What do we do? Lots of big decisions. And so next week, we're going to be digging into the question of what does it look like for Jesus to guide us as the Good Shepherd? What does it look like for Jesus to guide us as the Good Shepherd? You may not have questions related to being displaced by the fires, but you may have your own big questions about career, relationships, etc. How do you discern the voice of God? Does he speak? So we'll look at that next week. But the other big category that I see not just amongst the church, but amongst people in the city that I feel we're called to respond to as a church are how to respond and how do we help people with the big questions of life. Whenever you go through tragedy or tension or trauma, there's the 3 T's I call it, what comes up in your life are the big questions. You can sometimes forget the big questions of life when things seem to be going smoothly. But all of a sudden something happens and a relationship breakup or the fires or career change, unwanted career change, or something comes up where you do start to go, what's the meaning of life? Is there a God? Do I still believe in God? The big questions come up. And as a church, this is a season where our city, and including us, we're asking the big questions. So how do we respond to that? We are here for such a time as this, and in these moments, part of our response is not just to help people practically, which we're doing, not just to help people with guidance, which we're doing, but it's also to help people process the big questions about their faith, about Jesus. We had a Q&A last week after the service, which is why we do that, and people could come and ask me anything. And we had some great questions like, hey, is God angry at us? Is that why he allowed these fires? Or why did God do this to good people? Did God do this? Or was it a spiritual attack? Is this in response to the Golden Globes, someone said? And like, what is going on? Yes, it is. No, it's like people have the big questions right now. And we want to be a church that helps people process those big questions. The challenge is, of course, whenever we talk about this, processing these big questions, we nudge up against this topic which we kind of don't want to talk about. We kind of nudge up against this theme in Scripture which is awkward and difficult, and that, of course, is the E word, evangelism, right? Helping people with their questions, that's simply it. Helping people explore Jesus, helping people process what they think about him. And we're living in a culture where that is actually really, really challenging for most people, and we'd rather kind of do public speaking than do evangelism, right? It's one of those things. I read a few years ago this statistic from Barna, which is a research group, that said 94% of Christian millennials believe the best thing that could ever happen to someone is for them to know Jesus. We want our friends to know Jesus. Wouldn't it be great for people to know the hope, the love, the presence and power of God in our lives like we have with Jesus? The one true God has come to live with us and love us. It's wonderful. And then even more, the next stat was 73% of millennials say they know how to respond when someone raises questions about faith. And 73% say they are gifted at sharing their faith with other people. So I really want my friends to know Jesus, and particularly in these challenging times, to know the hope that he brings. I kind of know how to help people discover him and could maybe help them with their questions. But then there's a problem, which is the next one, which is, but 47% of Christian millennials believe it's wrong to share one's personal beliefs with someone of a different faith in hopes that they will one day share the same faith. These two don't fit together, do they? On the one hand, we go and we long to see our friends come to know Jesus. And if you're here and don't know Jesus, well, you're so welcome. And I think you're so brave to come and just explore. And we want to help you explore, and we want to recommend him to you. But what's interesting is half of millennials think, I want that, but I kind of think it's wrong to try. And of course, we know where that comes from. It's not a lack of desire. It's this culture is really hard to do that. I mean, there are some topics you just don't talk about. And actually, there are some things that you do which feel offensive to people, and evangelism kind of feels one of them. You don't want to come across as arrogant. You don't want to come across as judgy. You don't want to come across as superior. And so we kind of go, ooh, maybe it's unloving to tell people about Jesus because we're not loving them where they're at. So there's a lot of confusion around this topic, and yet we're living in a moment in time where our city is going, why did God let this happen? Where is God? Did he do this? We know that we have a challenge. We have this complex calling but challenge of what to do and how to help people with those questions. Things are very different today than they used to be. You talk to people in the church who were sharing the message of Jesus with others back in 1950s or 60s, and it seemed to be a very different cultural context. Here's a little diagram on the screen. In the 1950s, it felt like people had behind them a good positivity about the church and Jesus. Maybe they knew the basics of the gospel. They had a framework to understand it. They didn't really have any major kind of problems with Jesus in the church. They just had to be made aware and maybe convicted, and so they were receptive. But of course, we now know that's not where we stand, right? And today, it's a very different context, where people do have lots of blockages to Jesus. Maybe the church has hurt them. Maybe they've met other people of different faiths and go, how come Jesus hates these people? Like, what is hell? That sounds horrible. And the church abuse scandals, all this is all in the way. And so people, when they hear of Jesus, they're more hostile than receptive. So how do we respond to this? How do we actually help our city right now in this cultural moment where the questions are real and alive? How do we help when we're living in a challenge of telling others about Jesus? Well, we're going to look at what Jesus did. We're going to look at John chapter 10, where Jesus is telling other people about himself. He's the first evangelist. He's going, hey, you should know about me. And then we'll look at what he does. So John chapter 10, Jesus says this. He's talking to the Pharisees. He says, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I have come that they may have life and life to the full. First thing we see is that whenever we're telling people about Jesus, we're doing this with Jesus. That Jesus is on the move telling people about himself. He did it here. He said, look, I've come. This is the reason I have come. People do not know about me, and my heart breaks for them, and that's why I am here. I have come to tell people about me. It's why he said later on, I've come to seek and save the lost. It's why he gave a little parable in Luke chapter 15 of 100 sheep. 99 are safe doing a Bible study. One is out there, and he goes out there. You know, Jesus came because people don't know about him. And he wandered the streets. He didn't say, hey, come to my house. He didn't say, come to the synagogue, come to the temple. He went out to people. Because he came, he says, I've come that they may have life and have it to the full. I have come, he said, that they may have life and life to the full. So when we're called in this cultural moment to go, people have questions, people are struggling, Jesus is already on the move, speaking to them. He's alive. The thing is, he says, I want to do this with you, though. And so we're joining Jesus in sharing the good news. It's why Darrell Johnson, one of my professors at seminary, said, evangelism is joining a conversation the Holy Spirit is already having with another person. You see, the people in your life right now, they may not know it, but they're already being nudged by God's Spirit around issues of faith. It could be through trials and tragedies. It could be through traumas or tensions. It could be through disappointments or hopes. It could be through fears and anxieties. That all of these things raise questions. And sometimes God brings people into their lives, and guess what? He's brought you into their life to help them. Right now, more than ever, they're alive to the big questions of life because, as C.S. Lewis says, he said, we can ignore even pleasure, but pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. See, pain doesn't activate God in reaching out to people. People just attune their ears to him. And so right now, Jesus is at work with your friends, with your neighbors, with your colleagues. And he's positioned you to be part of that journey. Evangelism is simply going with Jesus to help the conversation along. But secondly, evangelism is always loving. It's loving. You look at Jesus' motivation to tell people about himself. It's not about himself. It's not about growing numbers. It's not even duty. Oh, the Father sent me. No, it's love. He says, look, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that you may have life and life to the full. The thief there is a generic term for the enemies of humanity, even ourselves. So we can destroy our own lives, can't we? Anybody ever suffered self-sabotage? But there are cultural things. There are other people who steal, kill, and destroy from our lives. There's even a spiritual enemy, Jesus says, that is wanting to steal, kill, and destroy your life. And Jesus has a bird's eye view of all these people in pain. His heart breaks, for God so loved the world that he came. And he came to bring us out of this destruction, out of this brokenness. His heart breaks for those who don't know him. Breaks for those who are trying to live life without him. Breaks for those who are vulnerable to thieves, stealing, killing, and destroying. And he comes because I want to bring you life and life to the full. See, evangelism is never coercing people to do something just for the sake of growing numbers or responding to our duty. It's never driven out of arrogance or superiority. It's simply going, oh my gosh, I love you so much. I'd love you to know Jesus because I love you. I mean, LA is a city. I love LA because it's a city where we fall in love with so much amazing things, and we recommend it all the time to our friends. I mean, I can't tell you how many times AG1 has been pushed on me the last month type thing. And then, all these other amazing new exercise techniques, all this kind of stuff. My wife and I tried bungee yoga the other year. It was like, didn't catch on. Someone sent me this link of the new LA craze, snake yoga, which may not be a craze, actually. But there are things, right, we go, I've tried this. It's changed my life, right? Have you tried this new coffee? It's amazing, right? We don't keep it to ourselves. In fact, if you had something which was the best thing you've ever had, and your best friend discovered years later you never told them, what would they say to you? You are no longer my friend. How unloving could you be? I mean, I'm a geek right now about backpacking. You all know that. And I joined a course, actually. Yesterday was my first day trip outing with my new course called WTC. Anybody done the WTC with the Sierra Club? Yeah, no one knows what this is. It's a whole underground movement. We meet at Santa Monica College on Wednesday nights. It's amazing. But the thing is, we're trekking around the hills, and I'm a geek on good gear, right? I know everything about gear, way too much about gear. I know way too much about how hydrophobic the down is and how many grams anything weighs, right? Way too much. See, you're realizing, pray for me, right? But the thing is, guess what we're doing when we get together? Oh my gosh, you should try this. This is like half an ounce lighter than that. This will save your life, right? Because we want other people to experience what we're experiencing. Because it's good. It's not arrogant to help others discover something amazing. It's actually really love. And in fact, Jesus was intolerant of evil. So if you think Jesus is intolerant, yes, he is, of things that are destroying and killing and stealing your life. So I've come that you may have life, and life to the full. We want to tell people about Jesus. We want to help them. Evangelism is loving. But evangelism is also a journey. I mean, look with me back at John's gospel here. It says, Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved." Now, this is challenging for people. And it says later on, there's a mixed response, because Jesus is actually saying something which not everyone's ready for. They're at different stages of even being able to listen to this. It says some were amazed at this. They were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is awesome. But some were very hostile. It's because Jesus actually, his claims were pretty significant. He says, I am the gate. Now just break that out. First of all, he says, I am, which to mean us doesn't mean much, but in the first century, I am is God's name. Remember he said to Moses in the burning bush, Moses went, who are you? He went, I am. That's his name. And so all throughout the Jewish community, I am is reserved for Yahweh, the Old Testament God of all creation, the one and true God. So Jesus stands up in front of everyone and says, hey, guess what? I am. I mean, not everyone was ready to hear that. And then he says, I am the gate, which is, look, if you come through me, you'll find life and life to the full. There's lots of false gates out there. I am the gate, not just one of many. I am the gate. Oh, dude, that's pretty significant stuff. And that's why in the first century, it caused havoc amongst lots of people. Go, how dare you claim to be God? There's this brilliant Monty Python scene here, because it literally, in verse 31, listen to this. I don't know if you have it on the text on the screen. We do. This is so Monty Python. Again, Jewish opponents picked up stones to stone him. But Jesus said to them, look, I've shown you many good works from the Father. Look, people have got stones. I've got many good works from the Father. For which of these do you stone me? Look, we're not stoning you for any good work, they replied, but for blaspheming, because you, a mere man, claim to be God. So mid-stoning, they have a little conversation. Just to clarify, why are you stoning me? Right? They were that incensed, they tried to stone Jesus. In fact, he wriggled away and escaped. But some, it says, some were going, well, hang on a minute, this sounds crazy, but this doesn't sound like a demon. And actually, didn't he just open a blind boy's eyes? So there's two different responses to Jesus' own revelation of himself. Some were going, you crazy, man. You can't make those claims. And some were going, yeah, it does sound crazy, but it has a ring of truth to it, because look at what he's doing. He's doing the God kind of stuff. So at least his life is matching his words. I can't do God stuff, can you? What we're seeing here is everyone, when they hear the message of Jesus, is in a different place. And Jesus has empathy with both. You have to kind of go, how are we going to reach the whole city? I think often the church is used to only speaking to people who are receptive. Only speaking to people who go, oh, thanks for telling me. I had never heard that before. Yes, I'm in. But actually, more and more of our city, we know, are in that first category of going, they're not saying, how on earth could you claim to be Yahweh? No, what they are saying is, hang on a minute, how can you claim to be the only way? You crazy. Hang on a minute, are you saying everyone else is wrong? You crazy. Hang on a minute, I'm spiritual, I'm a good person. You're saying that's not enough. Whoa, that's too much. Jesus is claiming something pretty significant. He is God, and there are no other gods. And in LA, people would want to stone him if they were allowed. I mean, there's hostility, right? And so we have to recognize, oh, that's also why it's challenging to talk about Jesus. So how do we do so in a way that helps people where they're at? That we actually, where Jesus did, he goes to them and meets them where they're at. This begs the question then, how on earth do we do that? Because if that's the majority of our city, metaphorically, in the LA kindness, want to stone Jesus. Well, how do we actually help them? And this is where, for many, evangelism just seems way above our pay grade. Way above our pay grade. You know, it's for experts, right? In fact, yeah, that's your job. You do that. We pay you to do that. It feels way above our pay grade. And yet at the same time, I'm not doing life with your neighbors. I'm not doing life with your friends. People sometimes literally say this to me, Gare, can you come to my house and I'll invite some of my friends around and can you do the Jesus stuff? It's like, that's the worst thing for your friends that could possibly happen. Bait and switch over dinner with a pastor they've never met before. I wonder if there's a way that we can actually make sharing our faith natural and accessible for all of us, even in this difficult cultural moment. If you look at the Bible, actually, there are many ways that people told people about Jesus. We kind of always just go, oh, that's the main way. But actually, the Bible gives us permission to do what I call evangelism for everyone. That it's not above our pay grade. There are some times that it's confrontational. Someone stands up in the crowds, that's great. But what about the rest of us? I want to give you 5 quick ways, and then we're going to end, on how you can be activated in this cultural moment to help people with their big questions. This is a moment. You do realize this is a moment where people's hearts are receptive, at least asking the questions. So number 1, be a compelling curiosity. Simply live the way of Jesus in proximity to those who don't know him. That you show them a difference, a compelling curiosity. See, there's a way of life in Los Angeles, and then there's the Jesus way. And sometimes they overlap, but sometimes they don't. Because the Jesus way is very different, particularly around the big things of life. Money, sex, and power is very different LA style than Jesus style. And when you live the Jesus way, you will be different. And what I find on the whole is people find that difference compelling. Sometimes they find it threatening, but on the whole, it's compelling. It's like, oh my gosh, you date differently. I went on, wow. You break up differently. You swipe differently. Right? It's like, this is different. And like, as a Christian, you're thinking, what would Jesus do with this app? That's what you do, right? That's what you think. Because that's what it means to follow Jesus, is what would Jesus do with this app? How would Jesus break up with this person? You do know that's what it means to follow Jesus. It's like, what would Jesus do with this money? What would Jesus do with this enemy? What would Jesus do with this promotion that I didn't get because someone lied about me? What would Jesus do with this business opportunity that fell through? What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do? And then you respond as Jesus did, and you will be a compelling curiosity, where people go, oh my gosh, the way of Jesus is different. He must be real. I want what you've got. And what's interesting is when people have asked me, I say I wasn't always a professional paid Christian. I was in a job for many years, and this is what I loved every day, going into the kind of open floor plan with like 100 people in cubicles. And I loved it though, because I really wanted to live the way of Jesus in proximity to those who weren't, that it would mess with them. Because they had an idea of what Jesus followers are like, right? Judgy, angry, hypocritical, arrogant, prideful. It's like, well, that's not Jesus, so Lord, help me live your way and just mess with their view and let me be the first Christian they like. Because they loved Jesus. And when they ask me, hey, like, what is it about? Like, why? What are you doing? I go, well, I always just say very briefly, dude, it's just Jesus. I'm not going to preach at you, but, I just follow Jesus. Anyway, do you want a cup of coffee? Yeah, I'm not trying to preach at them, but they're asking, what is this? I've said this many times before, but one of the best ways to help people realize, oh my gosh, this is real, is the Monday morning conversation, which happens every Monday morning. And what's the first question people say on Monday morning? How was your weekend? What did you get up to? And so I would always be honest, authentic, and go, Friday, it was awesome. Went down the pub, went for a curry, went to the club, got up late Saturday morning, watched the footy, slept in the afternoon, went out again to the pub, and then Sunday went to church. Actually, can I just say, Sunday was amazing at church. Just unbelievable. It just rocked my world. Then I went out for that lunch. Have you tried that new lunch place? And then I just rested. People go, whoa, time out. Now you're going, time out, you went to the club. They weren't saying time out for that, because they were with me. They were going, what church was like amazing? So yeah, it was. And then I'd always say, let me know if you want to know why. I'm always just going to respond to your questions. I'm never going to try and push anything. Sometimes, actually, I'd mess with them. And this is really important, because I would show them that I'm angry like they are with the hypocrisy in the church. Like I sometimes say, look, Sunday, we used to have this thing on Sunday mornings called the Sunday papers. And like physical paper that would come, and you'd read the news of the week. And sometimes there would be a story about hypocrisy or sort of scandal in the church. And doesn't that make you angry? Makes me angry, because that's not Jesus. And on Monday, I'd say, yeah, and then Sunday I read that article about that pastor who did this and that, and it made me so angry, because I love Jesus, and Jesus is nothing like that, and Jesus is angry too at that. Anyway, do you want coffee? I'd be authentic. Compelling curiosity. I think we can all do that. It's what Paul says, the aroma of Christ. Do people smell Jesus? Or do you just smell? Sorry, I don't know why I said that. Anyway, the next one is compelling curiosity, story. This is really key. Do you have a good news story about Jesus? Remember Jimmy Fallon during COVID? Good news! Do you have a good news story about Jesus? Well, just tell people that. What's really important is often we don't want to talk about Jesus to other people or even share anything about Jesus because we're afraid of being asked a question that we don't know the answer to. There's lots of questions I don't know the answers to. But that doesn't stop us going, yeah, great question. I have no idea. But I got a good news story about Jesus. This is what Jesus did for me. There's a passage in the Bible where a blind boy was healed. It's in John chapter 9, the previous chapter, where they try and say to this boy, whoa, who is it that healed you? Was it that sinner guy? And the boy realizing, uh-oh, I'm in a political conversation right now. I have no idea who he was. No idea. But one thing I know, well, I was blind and now I see. So I guess I'm going to check him out. You have a story. People want to hear the good stories of Jesus in your life. You don't push it down the throat. But used to being authentic, right? Just being authentic. Number 3, reasoned. Many people, like these Pharisees, had major intellectual objections to what Jesus was saying. Hang on a minute, you cannot be Yahweh because you're a man. Therefore, you're crazy. LA is the same questions. You cannot be the only one. You're crazy. You cannot do this. Because they have really good intellectual questions. And guess what? We have a lot to help people with in that area. I left the faith for many years through lots of pain and trauma, but one of the reasons I didn't come back was like, man, I was gullible. And I'm now a lawyer, I believe in evidence, I'm a science guy, I'm a rational guy. I'm not going to believe anything unless it's rational, reasoned, historically true, and verifiable. And then I came back to Jesus. And guess why I came back to Jesus? Because he's rational, reasoned, historically true, and verifiable. And we can help people. I don't think people realize that actually there's a reason for faith in Jesus. There's still faith, but we can help people. You may go, I'm the story guy. I'm blind. I was blind, now I see. I don't know anything. Well, yeah, that's fine. But some of you are. Some of you go, I love to help people with the tough questions. Then finally, supernatural. You know what? Lots of people in the New Testament didn't even listen to Jesus with all the talk. But when they experienced him, they went, whoa, hang on a minute. And they wanted to lean in. That's why we have something called the gifts of the Holy Spirit, is that people can taste and see that the Lord is good. I mean, I've seen people healed. I've seen people radically, profound words of knowledge for people who don't know Jesus. And they go, whoa, hang on a minute. Up until now, it's all been kind of a head experience. But this is different. Jesus just showed up. And actually, that's why you can pray for people. It's why if we lean into growing in things of the Holy Spirit, that we can actually help people taste and see that the Lord is good. I remember on Alpha, one of the guests in my group who was very skeptical, dragged along by his wife, actually. And she was pretty skeptical, but they were going through some difficult times, so they came to Alpha to ask the big questions of life. And he was like, week 6 is like, all this stuff that you're talking, Gay, is nonsense. I don't believe it. I went, okay, that's fine. But why don't this week we all have a go at prayer and just say, Jesus, if you're real, show your love to me. You went, but I don't believe in God. So, fine. Well, no one's going to listen to your prayer then. It's fine. No harm, no foul, right? You wasted 8 words. It's fine. You went, all right. So the next week he came back. He looked white as a ghost. I said, is everything all right? He goes, I prayed that prayer. I said, what happened? He said, well, I prayed it I was getting ready that morning. And I prayed, all right, God, if you're real, show your love to me. So I hopped in the car to go to work. And something was in the car. There's a presence in the car. I don't know what it was, but I started to cry. I don't know what it was. Just like this thick love in the car. I don't know what it was. And so I thought I was so disoriented, I turned on the radio. And he said, I never listen, have never listened, will never listen to Christian radio. Turn on the radio, or whatever you do nowadays. You don't do that, do you? Whatever he did. And you probably do it this side. Do that side. And suddenly this song came on the radio. The lyrics were, Jesus, you are the way, the truth, and the life. I thought, what on earth is this? This is so weird. But yeah, it's weird, but then I stopped at this stop sign, and I looked outside at the stop sign, and there's a big sign saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so I thought, this is too freaky. So I changed station, and the next station had the song, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So I got to work, and I didn't leave for half an hour, because I thought, oh my gosh, Jesus is real. And he began his journey with his wife of following Jesus. See, all of us can simply say, hey, can I pray for you? You know? I don't know any person who my friends who don't follow Jesus refuse prayer. They may not think that I'm actually going to go, I'll do it now. Can I do it now? And I'm going to pray for you. It's nothing creepy. Keep your eyes open. I'm just going to pray for you. It doesn't have to be intense, right? There's not one picture of Jesus going into a holy huddle praying for people. But he prayed for people outdoors all the time. In fact, he spat in someone's eye. You should try that. Then finally, this is the last one, then we're going to land the plane. This is the plane landing, which is invitational. My favorite story is Philip, the disciple, in John chapter 1, found Jesus. He went back to his friend Nathanael. Philip found Nathanael and said, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law," about whom the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth. See, Nathanael went very LA of him. He went, "Nazareth, you got to be joking me. Nothing good comes out of Nazareth. You know, God doesn't live in Nazareth." And it's a fairly good answer. And so Philip didn't know what to do. And I forgot to put it on the screen here, but Philip just said, "Okay, well, come and see for yourself." How many of you can simply say, "Come and see for yourself"? I think we can all do that. Come and see for yourself. Invite someone. The city needs an invitation right now. The city needs an invitation from you. Here's the next slide. Guess what percentage of people would come to church if they were invited in LA? Guess how many? Throw me out, come on. Sorry? 80? 70? Any lower? 20, I heard 20. 10. 40. See, it used to be 83. Things have changed a bit. It's gone down. But it's only gone down, next slide, to 63. See, 2 out of 3 people will say yes to come to church. That's better stats than you're dating. And you still ask people to go out on a date. Right? If only I'd had those results before I met Lizzie. Yeah, 8 of 63. Right, I'm asking everyone, right? Invite. Now, here's the thing. Not everyone will come to church. Some will. And guess what I'm going to talk about now? Alpha, right. Every Tuesday night, we have an evening for people who are curious and skeptics and just want to explore without judgment, without pressure. So lots of your friends would love Alpha. I came back to Jesus. I found Jesus on Alpha. I hated church. But I run Alpha. I'm on my 43rd Alpha course, something like that. And I love it. Tuesday night. And this is what happens on Alpha. See, next screen. See, of all the obstacles that people have, next slide, it would be great. This is kind of what happens. This is a long, slow, beautiful, organic journey where people process their questions, their hurts, and they discover Jesus along the way. So here's the thing. I'm going to ask a few things of you. This Tuesday, we have an infomercial called the Alpha Launch Night. Just come for one night with your friend. Come, hey man, come check this thing out, Alpha. Just come with me. What is it? It's just a space where people talk about the big questions of life. It's just a one-off night. If you like it, then you can sign up. But it's a fun night. Just come with me. And it's from 7 to 9. I explain what Alpha is, and that's it. People can decide if they want to do it. We normally have about 400 to 500 people on it because people do bring their friends. But here's the thing. You have a friend right now who you need to invite. Our city is going through a really big moment, and lots of these questions are being raised, and we want to help people with their questions. So I'm going to ask you, not can you think about bringing someone? I'm going to ask you, who are you going to bring? Who in your life would enjoy a fun night out, fun friends? It'll be easy, non-threatening. I'll be doing a 15-minuter on what Alpha is. Then the rest of the time, we'll be having chatting, meeting new people. We have the pub, and we have lots of fun. Now, I never believed any pastor tell me that a church event was safe to bring my friends. So here's a film that hopefully will persuade you that the Alpha Launch Night you could bring anyone to. Let's watch this film.
The most fun part of Alpha was the launch night. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. There was a DJ, there were churros, there was great conversation. It was a blast.
So the energy that was radiating out of this place, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole line. It was awesome.
Honestly, I think it was just super fun. A lot of laughter and just meeting a bunch of friends and community.
I heard from so many people, they couldn't believe how many people were here.
Everybody who I talked with had like a sparkle in their eyes and a smile on their face. And you know, what's to be nervous about meeting a bunch of new friends?
All right, on your seats is this. Can you find it from, I think you probably threw it on the floor, but if you look down, you'll see this. And then let's grab it and let's stand, because we're going to pray.